Hello Zero Wasters! Today I'm super excited to finally share a few recipes of something I've been craving to make for such a long time, but I just needed to do more research and really kind of research into the ingredients before I could share something with you. And that is, as you probably noticed from the title, is my DIY toothpaste and also tooth powder recipe, as well as a super simple mouthwash recipe. All the recipes require very little ingredients, most of which are easy to find plastic free. I have included a whole list of links where you can find the supplies. Because I had to buy them myself, I really did a lot of research into looking for the plastic free options that are out there. And also I prepare the recipes so that they are customizable depending on what you can get hold of and what you prefer. Just one note before we get started is that first of all, I highly encourage you to decide what's best for you, and it's a good idea to run this with your dentist because we all have different type of teeth and needs. So make sure that you check and do your own research and see what works for you. And then the other thing I want to say is that I know there's some discussion around whether toothpaste should include fluoride, and actually most of natural toothpaste out there don't contain fluoride, and there's kind of like a discussion between whether it's an essential ingredient, especially to prevent cavities, or not. So again, this is something that I think each one of us needs to make this decision. So the solution that I found that works for me is to kind of alternate a natural toothpaste that doesn't have any fluoride, like most of them are, like a DIY toothpaste, with a toothpaste that does have fluoride. And there are some brands, especially some toothy tabs that do contain fluoride, that are sold package free. So I'm going to include the link to the one I use down below. And actually doing research, I found out that we use way too much toothpaste and how much we are supposed to, and that leads to more waste because then you have to buy a new tube that comes in plastic packaging. So if you still don't have access to natural toothpaste with fluoride, then one option is to use what you have, but like use very little, because you really do need a very little of it, and then you can kind of alternate it with a more natural fluoride-free toothpaste. And I'm going to talk about the benefits of using a natural toothpaste shortly. So without further ado, let's get started. The first ingredient we will use in our toothpaste recipe is calcium pure food grade bentonite clay. We will need 2 tablespoons of it. Now, this is quite important. There are a lot of different varieties of bentonite clay, and it is essential that you get calcium bentonite clay, and that the bentonite clay is pure and food grade so that it can be used, for internal use. In fact, we want our bentonite clay to be full of calcium, which is great for teeth health. You could use calcium carbonate instead of bentonite clay, but normally it's a little bit harder to find plastic free. Yes, it has a prettier color, but also another downside is that it's not as absorbent like bentonite clay. Bentonite clay is super crazy absorbent. So because we're gonna add some liquid ingredients like coconut oil, especially during the summer, it's liquid. If we have a clay that has kind of like very absorbing properties, it can help make the product more less liquid and just like more compact. So I still recommend using bentonite clay for this project. Bentonite clay is also high in pH, between 8 and 9, so it's great to raise our mouth pH, and we want a high pH in our mouth because that's going to fight off bacteria. So you will actually notice that throughout the recipe we will use ingredients for that purpose, to raise the mouth pH, and so that this way we can get rid of any bacteria that might be forming in our mouth. And then the second reason is that we want to get rid of any acidity that might be forming in our mouth, which can lead to inflammation as well as bad breath. So we don't want any of that. The other thing I want to point out is that I've seen a lot of recipes, just like tutorials, doing my research, that say that you shouldn't be using metal when handling bentonite clay because of the different charges between the metal and the clay. I just want to say that during this video I did not use metal because I read these claims and I was not sure, and it's recommended to use wood. However, I'm still doing research on this topic because I'm not 100% convinced that it's actually true. If you know more about this topic, do let me know in the comments down below. Next we will add coconut oil, and in the recipe we will need 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. Depending on how hot it is, the coconut oil will be solid or melted, so I measured it when it was solid and it was about 28 grams. Coconut oil is antibacterial and can also help prevent bacterial infections. Here, make sure to use extra virgin coconut oil, which is the coconut oil variety that you can find basically in any supermarket. It's the coconut oil variety that is recommended to use for cooking. While, for example, if you have some coconut oil because you like to make, I don't know, lotions or soaps and you got it from a cosmetic supplier, check that you didn't get the deodorized version. That version is normally not suitable for oral care, for just like internal use. So for this project, I highly recommend using the extra virgin and more like purer version of coconut oil. Next up, we will add 1 teaspoon of xylitol, or if you don't have xylitol, you can add a few drops of stevia. So both of these are ingredients that are completely natural, and they are natural sweeteners. So they will make the toothpaste taste better. And also both of these ingredients can prevent tooth cavity. The xylitol mostly comes in plastic packaging, but there are brands selling it in paper. And the stevia normally comes in a glass dropper. The only difference in terms of taste is that the stevia has more of a licorice taste, which not everybody likes. So that's something to consider. What xylitol literally is like sugar. It looks like sugar. So when we are using it, we need to make sure that we grind it first. So I normally put the whole thing, like maybe not just 1 teaspoon, but like maybe 2 cups or a few grams into a food processor or a blender, whatever you have, and grind it into a powder, and it's there ready to use. Otherwise, if you add it in grains, it will not dissolve and it will fall down to the bottom of your toothpaste, which is a bit annoying. Also, both of these ingredients will help raise the pH in your mouth, which, what we said, we want in a natural toothpaste recipe. Then we will also add ½ teaspoon of salt, which again will help raise the pH. Next up, we will need ½ teaspoon of baking soda, and the baking soda, guess what, will help raise our mouth pH. Also, baking soda is a mild abrasive ingredient, so that means that it can help remove stains from your teeth and therefore whiten them. Now, this is very important. I've seen a lot of recipes that use a lot of baking soda. Some of them use maybe half coconut, half baking soda, with like literally tablespoons of baking soda. That's still quite an abrasive ingredient, so we need to be careful not to use too much of it, especially for daily use. It could potentially be too abrasive and damage our enamel. So in this recipe, I've included ½ teaspoon of it. Next, essential oils. Now, in my research, I found out that some dentists don't necessarily recommend essential oils because some essential oils are very strong in antibacterial and can really kill off any bacteria that might be in your mouth, even the bacteria that are good for your mouth, basically. So the recommendation was not to use too much, and that's also something to consider in terms of essential oil safety. So use just a very little. In this recipe we're going to add max of 2 drops. I used peppermint, and peppermint is great because of it has menthol, so it's great to give you a fresh breath, but again, we're not going to use that much. If you're swapping essential oils and you want to use, let's say, tea tree or other essential oil that you might have handy, please make sure to research them first. Not only if you're in a particular situation like you're pregnant, but just in general, we should always do our own due diligence when we're handling essential oils. It's also super important to use high quality essential oils, because these are essential oils that will, you know, end up in our kind of digestive system. When we're talking about essential oils, some essential oils are not 100% pure, especially the cheap ones. Be very careful when buying essential oils on Amazon from unknown brands, because they often claim 100% pure, but that's not true. Sometimes they're diluted in alcohol, because making essential oils is very expensive. So if you're buying an essential oil that is incredibly cheap, you might want to question it. Lastly, and this is optional, if you want, you can also add a pinch of activated charcoal to your recipe. So I am leaving this optional just because the charcoal is just an extra kind of whitening ingredient. We already have the baking soda, but charcoal is known to have those like whitening properties because it's an abrasive, just like baking soda. So it's a nice addition. However, there are some considerations. One, when you're buying activated charcoal, make sure that it is pure and derived from coconut shells. That's because activated charcoal might be derived from animal bone, as well as something called petroleum coke, which is like a byproduct of the oil industry. So, you know, you want to absolutely look for a pure grade that is derived from coconut shells, and this is normally very clear on the product's label. If you are unsure, ask the supplier. Lastly, we're also not going to use a lot of charcoal. Be very careful to use like just a very small pinch in the recipe, because charcoal is very abrasive, even more than baking soda. So if we use too much of it, it literally can, like, the small particles can like get into our teeth enamel and really do damage. Instead of like whitening it, can damage our teeth enamel. We need to make sure that everything is mixed in really well, and then we transfer everything into a jar. Make sure that the jar is sanitized, and again, we want to avoid sticking our fingers into it, or definitely we don't want to stick a wet toothbrush in it, because we don't want to add any water to the formulation, because that will introduce bacteria. So I recommend using a small teaspoon or a small wooden spatula. Now, if you want, you can actually make this toothpaste an excellent tooth powder simply by not adding the coconut oil. So if you don't add the coconut oil, first of all, this is great if you are traveling. A handmade product into a handmade, like, closed jar that is not sealed might spill, and it happened to me. Actually happened to my mom. I gave her a toothpaste I made, and we went to Egypt for holidays, and it's just like coconut spilled all over her clothes, which smelled like peppermint for a very long time. So that's not great, especially if you're making this toothpaste in the summer, or if you live in a hot climate, then coconut oil will likely be already melted. So I particularly like this recipe if I'm traveling or if it's summertime. So all you have to do is add the exact same ingredients that we talked about in the previous recipe, but without the coconut oil. So how to use the toothpaste powder? All you do is either you take a little beaker and basically you just take with a teaspoon, you add a little bit of the powder into the beaker, and then what you want to do is just like put your toothbrush as normal under the water and like scrape it on the beaker, attracts and just like gets all coated with your tooth powder. Otherwise, you can just use the palm of your hand, just like sprinkle a little bit of, try to use a spoon, you just don't stick your fingers in it, into the palm of your hand, and then go with a toothbrush. So that's one thing you can do. Okay, so we came to the end of these recipes. I really hope you enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever made your own toothpaste? Do you make a toothpaste similar to the recipes that I share with you today? I would really love to hear what your practices are and kind of like exchange ideas also around, I think the main two topics were, should we use metal to scoop bentonite clay? And then the second one was, should we give up fluoride, or is it essential for our oral care routine? I mean, if so, what are the brands that offer natural, zero waste toothpaste options with fluoride in it? I did so many bloopers in this video, so if you want to just laugh a little bit, I've included them right now. I think I should include bloopers in this video. And I'm gonna talk about the benefits of using a natural toothpaste shortly. Si capiva? However, something that you can do, because myself too often have Okay, scratch the last part. Sto impappinando. And is a montmorillonite detox. Yeah. La pappardella qua devo tagliare un sacco. Below all of essential oils that I know come from reputable. Next up is a mineral tooth powder recipe. Oh no, ho dimenticato un pezzo. Simply by not adding the coconut oil. Now there are some reasons why you might want to do that. One, you might be a little bit lazy like me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week on Monday. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week on Monday at 7 p.m.